I don't like dead silence. I like to have music.
Maybe our smiles will
So
work. Oh,
uncomfortable.
hello, Ian. It's wonderful to see you join.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Ah,
Ian, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. I've just got here just in time. This is
I just
perfect. It's
did.
perfect timing.
in your car.
I wanted to warn you that I might be, but I made it just in the nick of time. So
Wow.
yeah.
Very
Great.
good.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Keep Kids in Class, keeping kids in class and ending zero tolerance policies in Missouri. I'm Reverend Dr. Teacher Wise Baker. I'm the senior organizer for Metropolitan Congregations United in St. Louis, and we are on Facebook Live. We are streaming, I believe, best I can tell. Looks like everything is going okay. And we just want to do a quick virtual action between Metropolitan Congregations United and a Red Circle. And we have Representative Ian Mackey here to just share some information and invite you all into action today. I'm going to let all the leaders introduce themselves shortly in a moment, but I just want to say just a quick thing about Keep Kids in Class, the Keep Kids in Class campaign. I'm going to share some slides so that you can see those on Facebook Live. And so Keep Kids in Class is a campaign that historically is a collaborative campaign of organizations in the St. Louis region, working for years. It's been almost a decade now on various discipline policies in school districts, organizing parents, and tracking school discipline data. So it just depends on the org, what work they have done, but this is work that has been done with collaborative partners all over the region. The passage of legislation ending the zero tolerance discipline practices in Missouri is a natural continuation of the Keep Kids in Class campaign work that has been going on for years. Metropolitan Congregations United's Break the Pipeline campaign has been one convener of the Keep Kids in Class campaign. There's been other conveners of other issues over the time. And in this event, we are partnering with the Red Circle's education advocacy team to bring highlights to this particular issue and this particular bill. So I am going to turn it over to our leaders for today's action, Tamar Brown, Carolyn Randazzo, and Carolyn Redmore. So I'm going to stop sharing and I will hand it over to you all.
Okay, hi, I'm Carolyn Randazzo, and please excuse my voice, but I do have COVID, so I'm glad we're virtual and not in person. I'm a leader with Metropolitan Congregations United with the Pipeline Campaign, and specifically the education parts of that campaign. I am a retired teacher. I am a member of the new Sacred Heart Parish in Ferguson and Florissant. And I've been working on this campaign for quite a long time. And so we hope to get this over the finish line this year so that our kids can stay in class and not get pushed out and continue their education and finish it and be successful. Glad you're all here with us today. We're going to go quick so that you can get back to your lunch or go to lunch or whatever. And I'll hand it off to Tamar now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Carolyn. My name is Tamar Brown. I'm the Director of Education Advocacy for A Red Circle. A Red Circle is a nonprofit organization that specializes or emphasizes its work in North County. Three of the areas in which we work in will be the education space, arts, and community wellness. Within education, we look to impact education policies like the ones we'll be talking about today through our Education Advocacy Coalition. And we also work directly in classrooms with our SAFE program, Student Advocates for Education, where we impact tutoring and education modification, or excuse me, behavior modification through partnerships with local universities and colleges that come in and support students and also provide a roundabout way of mentorship to support students in becoming their best selves. Our partnership with MCU has been about a couple of years, and we're excited to be working on this live stream event to provide information and education to the community on lifting their voices and advocating for themselves and their families.
I'm Carolyn Redmore. There are two Carolyns on this team. And I am one of the leaders at Metropolitan Congregations United. And I'm active in the legislative activities, but I've always been interested in breaking the school to pipeline emphasis of NCU, and have always worked with that when I could. I am a member of Webster United Methodist in Webster Groves, and also active in the cluster group Churches Together for Justice in that area. I'm really pleased to have been able to connect my representative Ian Mackey with MCU and a Red Circle in relation to his bill 1816. Yeah, 1806.
1806.
1806 on that he's going to talk to us about. And just to give background about him, I pulled from my refrigerator side. This was from his, I think, his first campaign as representative when he was elected. And he, prior to being a legislator, he was an elementary school teacher. So he has boots on the ground experience in what he's talking about, and he loves children. And he has he's on the elementary and secondary education. One of the committees he's on is elementary and secondary education. And when he, on this same folder, one of his emphases was protecting students in the school to prison pipeline by reforming outdated school discipline. He's also supports teachers. So I think we are very fortunate to know that he has, again, this is not the first time, but he has again brought to us a bill that really addresses this issue of outdated school discipline. So Ian, I'm gonna let you take it from here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's good to see you all once again. Thank you for your work on these issues in the Capitol and back home in our community. Yeah, my name is Ian Mackey. I think I know all of you. Dr. Baker, I'm not sure if we've had a chance to meet or talk too much, but I see a lot of other familiar faces. I represent the 99th District, which encompasses the communities of Clayton, Ladue, Olivet, and Worson Woods. And as Carolyn mentioned, my professional background prior to legislating and prior to going to law school, which I completed just in time to join the legislature, was 7 or 8 years of teaching our youngest learners. And prior to that, I was a learner, as we all were, and I was a young learner and one who frequently found myself in the principal's office, who was suspended from school, who had some run-ins with discipline. Both of my parents were public school teachers. I think that was part of my rebellious nature, teachers' kids, preachers' kids, et cetera, et cetera. You see where that goes. But also that was, I think, my biggest blessing was I had folks in the building who could advocate for me every single day, who understood that there were certain consequences I needed to face, but if they thought they went too far, they were in the building every single day and could do something about it. A lot of my peers were not as fortunate. And so the bill that Carolyn asked me to talk about today, by the way, also a member of St. Michael and St. George in Clayton, since we're sharing church home information. But in any event, the bill that Carolyn asked me to share was 1806, as she mentioned. So and I've had a lot of conversations with folks on both sides of the aisle about this bill. It seems to have some bipartisan traction. I'm hoping that we can, whether or not we are able to have a standalone hearing and push this as a solitary piece of legislation, I'm not sure, but I think it's a relatively simple enough concept that we may be able to add it into other education-related legislation if we have the political will to do that. What this legislation does is prohibits our school districts from having in policy in writing or enforcing in practice zero tolerance discipline policies. Zero tolerance policies came about, or at least were I guess, universally or almost universally applied starting, after Columbine in the late 90s and through the Federal School Safety Act related to gun violence in schools and violence in general in schools. There were, and probably still are, a lot of superintendents and administrators who think that the School Safety Act requires them to have a zero tolerance policy, and that is in fact not true at all. There are some pretty strict suggestions in the Federal School Safety Act related specifically to acts of violence that involve firearms or weapons. But even those are suggestions. And there is certainly nothing in the School Safety Act that says if two children get into a fight on the playground, you have to suspend them both, even if one of them was punched and not the puncher. And this is where we see this come up the most often, is when children are involved in a physical altercation, and there's no sorting through how that altercation occurred, who initiated the altercation, everything that would happen in our justice system if these individuals were adults, if they were 18 and they were on the street instead of being 16 in school. None of those questions are answered. None of the investigations don't take place in the school building. It is as simple as saying you're both out of school for 5 days, 10 days, depending on the offense. We also see kindergartners. I talked to a mom of a 5-year-old in Jefferson County who was suspended because he said he was going to bring a bomb to school because he wanted to blow everybody up. He was 5, and he's interested in things that blow up. He's not threatening anybody with violence, and kicking him out of school for 5 days at 5 years old is not solving anybody's problems. So, whether it's 5 or 6 year olds, excuse me, using their fingers, to imitate a gun, or saying, I'm going to kill you, or things that kids say, or whether it's 2 teenagers who get into a fight and the victim is punished just as harshly as the perpetrator, those are both instances that play out every single day in our over 500 school districts across the state through zero tolerance policies that result in way too many students being suspended that should otherwise be in school, be in class, and should be learning. These are false handcuffs that administrators place on themselves so that it limits their workload. And I get it. They're overworked. They got a lot on their plate. They have a lot to do. I'm somebody, and most folks, I think, in my party are folks who want more resources for our teachers, for our counselors, for our administrators who are overworked. But the solution to being overworked is not to kick kids out of school when they otherwise should be in school. So that's what we're trying to address.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Yes, and yeah, we know about that with kids getting pushed out of school. Totally. In fact, I have a friend, I guess that's going to go next, right? Who gave me some testimony about an incident that happened with her nephew when he was a 9th grader. And so we know that's 14, 15 years old. And this happened in 2013. He was being bullied in school and thought the other boys were going to fight him. So he took a gun to school for protection. But once he got to school, he realized this was a big mistake. And so he went to a trusted teacher and mentor in his school and gave the gun to the teacher and said, he knew he'd made a mistake and all of that. The teacher, of course, took it to administration. And even though he made the right decision to give that gun to a trusted adult, but still zero tolerance, he was put out of school. He was able to go to an alternative school in Clayton for the 9th grade, but his family kept pushing. And so they got him back into his district to go to alternative school. And then his family kept pushing and kept working for him and supporting him. And he was finally, after the 3rd appeal, allowed to return to McClure North out here in Ferguson, Florissant for 11th and 12th grade. He graduated number 107 out of a class of 407 and was chosen to give a speech at commencement. So he made one mistake. He turned it around because he himself knew that what he had done was wrong. And he had a family that could support him and did support him. And he says that. He told his aunt, my friend, that had he not been given that support, he would have given up. And so who knows what would have happened then? We feel like we know what would have happened. He would have ended up in the prison pipeline. And so my friend said their family is very proud of him. He is the young man that he has become. He's a productive, contributing member of our society. So he suffered that of, having the zero tolerance policy. He was directly affected by it, but managed to turn it around with the help of his village and to make that happen for him. But we know some kids don't have that. A lot of our kids don't have that. And so we can't let them get into those spaces. This is a young man who did the right thing and still suffered the consequences. So we know that those stories are important. And so Tamar is going to talk about how to create good testimony, to tell the kids stories, to find out why these things are happening, and not just, oh, you did this bad thing. Okay, Tamar?
Thank you, Carolyn. And just FYI, when I do Zooms, I like to have a conversation. So I want this to be comfortable. When you're watching it, you feel safe, like you're talking to a friend or someone that you met on the street, right? Or a neighbor. So understanding that a red circle is about restorative practices. We're just going to look briefly into what process are we a part of right now before testimony will even be submitted. So right now the bill has been introduced. Representative Ian Mackey believes in this bill. We believe in the bill as well. And it has been introduced as a bill becomes a law. Right now, we're waiting for it to go into a committee hearing. And in that part is where you're going to submit your testimony as a resident of Missouri. You're going to have the conversation via a digital conversation, just explaining who you are and why you believe in this particular bill. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what good testimony looks like. And then you'll see from Carolyn how to take those steps and make sure that your testimony is completed. And ladies and also gentlemen, feel free to jump in if I miss anything or if you have something important that you want to add to what I'm sharing at this moment. Okay. So good testimony, your story is important. And I want to emphasize that your story is important. The stories of the residents in Missouri matter. And in order for our representatives to be informed, we have to tell those stories. They can't hear from every one of them, right? They can't make all the rounds. They're busy making laws and introducing laws. So we have to share those stories so they can be informed on what's going on the ground and what's happening. So you'll start with stating your name. And I'm going to put myself in this situation, Tamar Brown, am in favor of House Bill 1806, sponsored by Representative Ian Mackey. The bill pushes to end zero tolerance discipline policies and practices in our schools. I think this is important because, and be sure to be clear and concise here, because I think you have a word limitation. You can only have so many words in the space. So be sure to tell that story as clearly and as simply as you possibly can. So there's no confusion, there's no if, ands, or buts, but just be clear about your stance and why is it important to you. And also we would encourage you to talk about, instead of suspensions, what recommendations do you offer, right? What are some things that you've seen have worked in the past? You can share information of some stories you've heard in a different state or a different country even, just so they can have alternatives to consider and to think about. And do you have any more to give to that, just in case?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's terrific advice. Folks often think that when they're asked to testify, they have to go do research or they have to, review statutes or they have to have some sort of advanced degree and explain theories, and they don't have to do any of that. What they have to do is what you just said and share their story. What Carolyn just did, sharing the story of the student in McClure North, sharing the experiences of folks that you've come in contact with who have either had a negative experience with zero tolerance policies in this instance or have benefited from a discipline policy that was other than zero tolerance. And like you said, 2 or 3 minutes, if you're coming to testify in person is always best. It's a day. You have to have the whole day essentially to come to Jeff City and do that. But in person is best. But if not, as you mentioned, a brief written story. And then, feel free to email, you can submit the testimony through the portal, but you can also email it to me, to the other committee members directly as well. And then that will sort of bump it up. If this is something we're seeing, 20, 30, 100, 200 written testimonies on, feel free to bump yours up and send it directly to our inboxes. That works as well. And all of that is far more effective than phone calls or form emails. You know, those have their place too, especially in large numbers. It's great to see them all pile up in the inbox, but this is that's kind of the series of effectiveness when it comes to trying to affect change and make your voice heard here in the Capitol.
Okay, so direct email to your state representative is very important, right? It gives a straight line to the person that needs to hear it. And of course, in-person testimony is optimal, right? We would love for people to come out, but we know folks are busy, their schedules are pretty busy. So we would love for you to at least not, to do something instead of not doing anything.
Yeah.
So that digital submission would be awesome too. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
You bet. I've got a meeting at 12:30, so I'm going to hop off. But thank you all very much for your support on this, for your work on this. I look forward to working with you all moving forward.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. You bet.
Okay, so next, excuse me. So next, how do we get this testimony submitted? So that if we can't be in Jefferson City for an 8 o'clock hearing on a Wednesday morning, which is kind of tough. So what you're seeing on the screen are the steps in the actual witness form that you'll see when you go to this website, witness.house.mo.gov. And you can see this is the witness form. And the first line is the hearing. And so you can see the little arrows. You click on that and it'll drop down the menu with the hearings that are happening, that are scheduled at that point. Usually the education bills go through the Elementary and Secondary Education Committee, but there's also one this year about special committee for education reform and all of that. But it's usually that one. It's usually, and then it will show the bills that are in the hearing, the list of bills. And so like this one right now, all it's in elementary and secondary education is this one. So you would check mark that. Sometimes there will be 2 or 3 or 4. You check the bill that you're submitting testimony about. Okay, then how are you testifying as an individual, not a lobbyist, not a business or an organization? And then so you wanted to click the individual box, and then it'll say again, if you'll go back, there we go. Go back to the bill, and then what's your reason? Are you in support of it? Are you in opposition to it? Or is this just for information? So click one of those, and then put your statement in there. And then they also ask how you will attend. And so kind of the default is just to submit testimony. You're not going to testify remotely or anything like that. Okay. Then you'll put that in. And so now we can go to the next slide. Okay. Complete the rest of the form. That'll be your information. Your name and your email are both starred. But if possible and if comfortable, fill out the whole thing. Usually we know on these forms, if the box is starred, that's a must, but we don't want to run into any glitches with that. So you complete all of that. It's all the usual stuff, name, address, email, and all of that, okay? Don't forget to hit the green submit button down there in the corner. You have to do that. And then all these fun little things for all of the verification and the security and all that. You're typing your name in the signature box. We just put in concerned voter. And then of course, the characters there. Then you hit your submit, your green button. After you do that, watch your email. Within a few minutes, you'll get an email back and it will say to verify your testimony. You want to open that up, verify it. That's when it actually gets submitted into the House of Representatives. So that's just a quick explanation of what you need to do. It's pretty, as you read it, it kind of makes sense and everything, but don't forget to hit the green submit button and then watch for that email so that it can actually be verified to go in there. It's very important to do that piece of it. And that's how you do it. We always like to see people going to Jefferson City, but it's tough, but this works too. and get that information in there to people, to the reps, and let them know. I really liked how Representative Mackey gave us some other suggestions of how we could get our views out there about the different legislation. Now, his bill 1806 that we're supporting also has not been assigned to a hearing yet, to a committee yet. So we can't do any testimony right now. But work on what you want to say. That's kind of the point of today. Work on what you want to say and have it ready so that when it's time, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when it gets assigned, we'll be ready to go and get it in there. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Deidre.
Thank you all for basically attending this virtual education session for submitting testimony. Just in terms of next steps, we want you to get on our email notification list for MCU in a red circle. This is when it's time in terms of the hearing being set, we're going to send you out notifications. So make sure that you like us, you're on our email list so that you can get that notification. You can, as Ian said, you can submit online testimony directly to your representative, and you also want to ask them to support HB 1806. He said that clearly, and so get it ready. You don't have to wait to submit your support. So you can do that right now. You can email your representative right now, which he said gets high attention. If you want to join our team, we welcome you to do that. You can reach out to Carolyn, and I put Carolyn's email. Just reach out to Carolyn and say, hey, I'm interested in being more directly involved in what you all are working on in terms of keeping kids in class. So a special shout out to parents who are going through this in their schools, and those in the community who want to support and work on these issues together. Thank you again. Thank you to all the leaders who showed up today to lead this important action. And thank you for your support in the community to keep kids in class. Have a good day.